My first LSAT practice test score was a 152. My score stayed there for far too long, but ultimately I ended up scoring a 175 on LSAT test day itself after a year of beating my head against the wall. Looking back on it all, the biggest thing that changed the game for me was the Socratic review method. If I'd had that tactic from the beginning, I could have gotten my 175 in at least half the time, because I spent far too long wasting my time reading LSAT textbooks that were hand-me-downs like LSAT for Dummies, containing fake LSAT questions, and taking test after test to measure myself when that really just was not helping. The explanations weren't helping either. Eventually, I did every single practice test ever released. There were 40 something of them at the time, and I was able to bring my score from the low 150s to practice test scores in the mid to high 170s, ultimately netting me that 175 on LSAT test day. The biggest game changer for me about the Socratic review method was when I stopped thinking about LSAT question stem type. I had a breakthrough where I came to understand that the method of reasoning in the argument is actually just as important, if not more important. Surprise, surprise. If you actually take the time to understand what you're reading, and if you can see the exam from the test maker's point of view, where you can transform one logical reasoning question type into another based on the method of reasoning in the stimulus, you will then demonstrate a mastery of the material that lets you get your scores into the 170s solidly. Now, the Socratic review method is a template, a framework that guides you through understanding every single element of the question, whether it's the argument in a logical reasoning question or the passage in a reading comp question, if it's about the question stem, or if it's about the answer choices. So you want to look systematically at every single element of the passage or the question. So logical reasoning, stimulus, question stem, answer choices, reading comprehension, passage, question stem, choices. Side by side, the approach is pretty much the same, but you want to start off by making sure you thoroughly understand the passage text or the stimulus. What are the tricks and traps they are laying for you in, say, a logical reasoning stimulus? Are they neglecting to include key indicator words for evidence and conclusion indicators, for sufficient and necessary condition indicators? Are you able to understand the argument in the absence of those key indicator words? Maybe LSAC is using difficult or annoying words like unless, except, until, or without. Maybe they are burying the conclusion in the middle of the passage rather than at the beginning or the end. Maybe they're incorporating sub-conclusions or counter premises. You want to make sure that, of course, you are able to easily and clearly identify and demarcate those different elements of the argument. Maybe LSAC is using some unfamiliar wording in the question stem that makes it harder for you to ID what question type you're dealing with, or maybe your misunderstanding is coming from the answer choices. If it was a tempting wrong answer, you want to know what was tempting about the wrong answer choice that made you pick it, what ultimately makes it wrong, what was unappealing about the right answer choice that pushed you away from it, and what ultimately makes it correct, because you have these traps of encouragement towards the wrong answer choice and traps of discouragement away from the right answer choice. And until you understand which tricks and traps you are personally uniquely prone to falling for, you can't help but make the same mistake again. Of course, at LSAT Unplugged, we demonstrate this process for you live in our classes, and they're all recorded for any that you can't make. We'll walk you through it as well in our private one-on-one coaching program. And we have literally hundreds of example questions where we walk through this process, since we've been doing these live classes online for years and years, even prior to the pandemic. And of course, all of this is regardless of LSAT question stem type. So whether you're having trouble with parallel reasoning questions or a more common type like necessary assumption, inference, or flaw, you want to make sure that you are able to parse out and analyze the mistakes that you are personally prone to making so that you can change your approach for the next time around. And if you are still having trouble with a logical reasoning question where maybe you need help with the basics, we have lessons to help you with that as well. Maybe it's about conditional indicator words for necessary and sufficient conditions, or those evidence and conclusion indicators. Start there if you don't know them. These will carry you far. If you don't know them, you're in trouble. Anyway, folks, that's all for now. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.